I was thinking about what the Lord was wanting me to speak, and I took a lot of notes. And then today, as we're worshiping and stuff, I feel like the Lord's kind of shifting the direction because, it's important. I wanted to speak about faith and having faith. Like we were saying, I believe God can do anything, right? I believe that He can do all things and that there's nothing impossible for Him. And it's good to have that faith. But, like Paul says in Corinthians, if I even have faith that can move mountains, that's not really worth anything without love. But it's important to understand, our love is what tests our maturity in the Lord. But it also says in John, if we love Him, we shall obey His commandments. 1 John 5, 3-5, it says, for this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not grievous. For whatsoever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. Who is he that overcomes the world but he that believes that Jesus is the Son of God? And it's important to understand, if you believe in Jesus, it's one thing to say, I believe, but it's another thing to live that out, It's one thing to profess something with your mouth, but it's another thing altogether to live that out in your life and in your daily walk. And for people to be able to recognize and be able to testify that you believe in Jesus without you even having to tell them. You know what I'm saying? Like our works and our lives should be a testimony to what we believe. You know what I mean? If we testify to what we believe, yet we live lives contrary to what the Word says, then we obviously don't really believe what we profess. You know what I'm saying? Because if we believe what we profess, then we have to believe everything Jesus says. And if we believe everything Jesus says, then that brings about a transformation. And it makes you know that you can no longer live the way that you did. So I wanted to focus on that because like it says in 1 Samuel 15:22, I wanted to go there for a second. I just wanted to kind of highlight some things that the Lord was just showing me about obedience is better than sacrifice. Obedience to God is foundational, If we're seeking God with faith that can move mountains for greater things, yet we don't have this foundation in obedience laid, like it says in Luke 6:46-49, Jesus says, why do you say unto me, Lord, Lord, and do not do the things that I say? Therefore, whosoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded upon a rock. But this foundation that Jesus is saying that we can lay is laid in obedience to the things that He says. It's laid by taking what Jesus says and putting it into practice. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about Matthew 7, verses 21. And it's like Jesus is telling them, many will come unto me in that day, and they'll say, Lord, Lord, we did all these things. We prophesied in your name. We healed people. We raised the dead. We did all these things in your name. And He'll say, depart from me. I never knew you. Depart from me. I never knew you. Even though you were going around and doing things in my name. You're going around telling people you know Jesus. You're even doing miracles in my name. Yet Jesus is going to tell them, depart from me. I never knew you. So we need to understand how in the world a Christian or a person professing Jesus could get into this position where they're trying to do things to honor God, supposedly, and doing things that they think God wants them to do, but that's not what He wanted them to do. He didn't want them to go do those things. So there's this spirit of lawlessness that can be within somebody where you can go and do the things that you think God wants you to do, but be living in rebellion against God. And He'll still honor what you're doing only for His own name's sake, so that His name will not be blasphemed among the nations. He'll allow people to do things in His name and honor His name and then destroy the people who were speaking in His name against His will. And that's scary. That's terrifying. You know, it's a terrifying thing. But that's why it's important to understand the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You know, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The fear. Because fear, and don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people like, you know, they say it's all about love. But no, it says clearly, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Because fear of the Lord is what keeps you in secret from doing things contrary to God. It's what keeps your heart in check when no one else is around to do the things which are not pleasing to God. If you have a healthy fear of God, it's the foundation. But it's not the roof. You know, it's not the finished product, but it is something that has to be founded. A healthy fear of God, which keeps you obeying Him, even when it's contrary to what you want to do. You know, even when it's contrary to what you see going on in the world. And I wanted to touch on Samuel 15 because Saul, there's a couple examples that I just want to go through where someone does something, and it's even like something that God would have you do. But it wasn't what God had told them to do. So when they did it, they suffered severe consequences for what they did because they forced God's will on their own. They tried to force things to happen at their own pace. 1 Samuel 15, and it's the Lord. Well, this is a different part, but Samuel comes. He had commanded Saul. He says, "Go and destroy the Amalekites and destroy everything that lives and breathes and destroy everything. Don't keep anything." Well, Saul, he goes and they destroy the people, but then he spares the king and he spares all the sheep and the oxen and everything that looks good. And then Samuel comes to him. And says, and starting in verse 16, Samuel said unto Saul, "Stay, and I will tell you what the Lord has said to me this night." And he said unto him, "Say on." And Samuel said, "When you were little in your own sight, were you not made the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed you king over Israel? And the Lord sent you on a journey and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners of Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. Wherefore then did you not obey the voice of the Lord, but did fly upon the spoil, and did evil in the sight of the Lord?" And Saul said unto Samuel, he says, "I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and I've gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took the spoil, and the sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Lord your God in Gilgal." And it's important to see right there, he just completely lied, right? They took the spoils for themselves. But then whenever they were confronted about what they did, whenever Saul, he was slick. First of all, he shifted the blame. He said, "Oh, the people took it." And then he said, "Well, but they took it to offer sacrifices to God." That's not why they took it. This was just what he came up with, a quick answer in his own mind to try and justify himself. You know what I'm saying? And it seemed like it would be a good thing for God, as if he could lie to God. You know what I mean? This is why it's important to have the fear of the Lord as a foundation. Because Saul did not have a healthy fear of God. Because when he was rebuked for what he did wrong, he went even further in his rebellion and lied to God through Samuel. Well, he thought he could lie. And then Samuel says to him, "Has the Lord great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as he does in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. And so we need to see this, what he's saying in verse 23. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness as iniquity and idolatry. Saul took what he knew about God and he tried to make it something for God. Like, he knew that God, delighted in sacrifices or required sacrifices. So in his quick mind, when he has all these things, he says, oh, well, God wanted, I'm going to sacrifice all these to God. You know what I'm saying? He's rebelling against the command of God and trying to make it work his own way and still continue to do something in front of God, to God, which is contrary. Another example. Israel, whenever they were supposed to go into the land of Egypt, or not Egypt, whenever they left the land of Egypt, they're supposed to go into the promised land. And they sent the 12 spies. Remember? They sent the 12 spies. The spies went out. They came back. They gave the evil report, right? And then Joshua and Caleb are like, no, let's go. Let's take possession. And the people, they wept. They cried. They didn't believe. They said, no. We're going to be we can't go in. God brought us out here to destroy us. Well, that night, God speaks and tells the people, now you're going to be in the wilderness for 40 years because you did not believe, and all the men that were supposed to go into the land 20 years and up are going to die. Well, what did the Israelites do the next day? They heard that judgment from God. And then they were like, no. And then they rounded people together and they went and tried to take possession of the land themselves. And they were destroyed because they disobeyed God's word. Even though God had already told them what they had to do before, they didn't believe. Then when God had pronounced that judgment, they tried to change that judgment by going and doing the next day what he had told them to do the day before. And God was like, no, sorry, too late. I'm not honoring this. Because they were still continuing to rebel against the word of the Lord. They were rebelling against even the judgment which he pronounced. It would have been better for them to surrender to that judgment and accept it than it would have been for them to try and do the next day what they were supposed to do previously. You know what I mean? So there was a deeper rebellion by trying to force God's will, And I think Matthew 7 is a picture of that. Where they're saying, we did this and this and this in your name, But there's a point where God is telling us to do a certain thing, and that's all that's required of us. You know what I mean? And the foundation of what God is telling us to do, first and foremost, is to obey his words, to live as a Christian. Like it says in Micah 6:8, he has shown you, oh man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. It's important that we lay this foundation of obedience and walking as Christians before we even try to move on and do anything else. You know what I mean? There's no point in us going out in the world and prophesying and raising the dead and doing all these things if people can look at us and see in our daily lives that we're not even living like Christians. You know what I mean? All these other things that we're doing in the name of Jesus mean nothing if your daily life is not in line with the Word. Your daily life has to be a reflection of this. If it's not, don't go. Don't go anywhere. That's why it says, all day long my name is constantly blasphemed. Don't blaspheme the name of the Lord. Don't profane the sacrifice. Stay put. Get in the Word. Know His Word. If you haven't read the Bible, why are you going out and trying to preach? You know? Why are you going out and doing anything? I think there's a place where we need to realize God's not in a hurry. That's us. We're the ones that feel like we need to be doing something, You know? Like Martha and Mary. What did Jesus say? Martha was all worried about what she had to do. But Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet just listening to what he had to say. And what did Jesus say to Martha? Martha's like, dude, tell Mary, come on, help me out. Jesus said, no, she's chosen what is good. Just sitting here, not doing anything, trying to figure out what I'm saying. You know? And there's something we can learn from that. There's a time where we need to understand that we need to be able to rest in the Lord and to be able to sit before him and understand what his will is for our lives. But we can't make his will, like, we need to understand his will is unfolding, right? First and foremost, his will is for you to do what you're supposed to do. Be a Christian. Walk in obedience to these commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Like, first and foremost, don't even be worried about what God's will is for your life until you're laying the foundation in this. You know what I mean? You can't build the house before the foundation's laid. You have to lay the foundation. That's what he says in Luke 6. He says, after that, he says, a foolish person is the person who goes and starts building his house just on the sand. He didn't dig down to the rock. He didn't go and find Jesus and completely understand what he had done and what he commanded. You know? So, but if we're in a hurry to feel like we're doing something, we're going to go out and get ahead of the Lord. You know? You know, it's like the Lord was, I've been going through some rebuke in my life lately because the Lord, I went out and I had a house that I wanted to get. I went and I put a $5,000 earnest payment down on it. I just thought, oh, it worked out. It must be God. It worked out. You know what I mean? And then come to find out, I ended up not getting the house, and I didn't do the paperwork right. I ended up losing the $5,000. You know what I'm saying? And here I was thinking that things were working out because the Lord had blessed me. And the Lord showed me, like, no, things worked out because I've given you the gift to be a good salesman. You know what I'm saying? You can make things work yourself without God even being involved. And that's scary. You know what the Chinese church says about Americans? They say it's amazing what Americans can do without God. That's what they say about us. And that's the truth. It's amazing what we can do without God. I wish that I remembered exactly where this story is, but there's a story, and it's when the Philistines, Eli's house is judged. Hophni and Phinehas. But they go and they take the Ark of the Covenant and they go out to battle. But God didn't send them to battle. They go out to battle. They take the Ark of the Covenant. They're doing everything that God had told them to do before, just not at this time. You know what I mean? They're taking the Ark of the Covenant. They're doing everything according to the law that they're supposed to do to go to battle. Except for the problem is that the Lord didn't tell them to go. So they go, and they're going against the Philistines, and the Philistines are in their camp, and they hear the Israelites coming. And they're like, and they hear a great shout. The Israelites make a great shout, a sound that even shakes the entire earth. And the Philistines say, show yourselves strong, be men. We're fighting against the God. And then, so they made all this noise. They even shook the entire earth. And then they got defeated by the Philistines because they were going against God's will. Because they weren't sent where they went, even though they had the Ark of the Covenant with them. They got destroyed because they were going against God's will. Just like Perez Uzzah. Everybody knows the story about Uzzah, right? They're taking the Ark of the Covenant. David's taking the Ark, and Perez and the oxen stumble. And Uzzah leaves his hand out to steady the Ark. and he dies. God kills him because he touched the ark. And that's what we think. We think God killed him because he stuck his hand out to steady the ark, and it gives people the wrong understanding about God. But even David was like, man, how can I even stand before God? You know what I mean? And he sends the Ark of the Covenant somewhere else. But then we realize, we understand in Chronicles 15:13. Let's go there real quick. 1 Chronicles 15:13. First Chronicles 15:13. It starts out, and David called in 11. David called for Zadok and Abiathar the priests and for the Levites. And he said unto them, you are chief of the fathers of the Levites. Sanctify yourselves, you and your brothers, that you may bring up the ark of the Lord of Israel unto the place I have prepared for it. It was because you did not do it at the first that the Lord our God made a breach upon us, because we did not seek him after the due order. So the priests and the Levites sanctified themselves to bring up the Ark of the Covenant. But it's important to see that even David, a man after God's own heart, he got in a hurry, right? He wanted that Ark of the Covenant to be with him because he saw that Obed, he heard. He's like, Obed, man, he's being prospered by this thing, man. I need to get it with me. So he got in a hurry to get the ark out of where it was and to bring it close to him. But then he learned from his mistake because Uzzah got killed. And then he was scared and sent the ark away. But then the Lord, he had this revelation because he saw it. He's reading the law. And he understood. He was reading God's word. And he saw something. He's like, oh my gosh, wait a second. This is why God did this. It wasn't because God just wanted to kill Uzzah. God doesn't delight in killing anybody. He doesn't want anybody to perish. But he does things so that we can learn. So he says this. It was because we didn't do it this way at first that God, when he says, that's why it was Perez Uzzah, a breach, right? So it's important to see that God even rebuked David because David didn't do things after the order that he commanded. But when he did it the way that he commanded, nothing happened. David enters into the place. He's dancing, he's all excited. They made it all the way where they were trying to go because they obeyed God's command. So I just think it's important that we learn and understand the importance of obeying God. We need to make it a big deal, Other example, Moses, right? What happened? God told him, go and speak to the rock, to bring water out of the rock for the Israelites. What did Moses do? He went and he hit the rock twice because he was angry and frustrated. The God will bring you water out of this rock. What happened to Moses? He didn't get to enter the promised land. Now, don't get me wrong. I know he wasn't going way before he did that, but that's what it says at that time. So even Moses had to suffer a severe consequence for disobeying God's word. But he didn't suffer the consequence of death, though. That's important. When we're in covenant with God, we can trust, But there is some sin that leads to death. Moses was spared. 1 Kings 13. It's another good example. There was a young prophet, and he's the one that goes and he prophesies against Jeroboam, against the altar that Jeroboam had set up. And he tells him, and it's revealed. I'm just going to sum up the story, but if you want to read the story, 1 Kings chapter 13. But he goes and he prophesies against the altar, and Jeroboam stretches out his hand to say something to him, and his hand shrivels up. So then he starts to fear the word of the Lord, and then he begs the prophet, pray to the Lord for my hand. So then the prophet prays, and Jeroboam's hand is restored and stretched back out. And then Jeroboam says to him, hey, come back to my house. I want to make you dinner and hang out. And the prophet says to him, no, the Lord told me to come this way. He said, do not eat or drink, and don't go back the way that you came. So the prophet's on the road. He does good. He leaves. And as he's on the way, another prophet hears about what he did. It says this older prophet. And he goes and he tells the younger prophet, hey, come with me. Come with me. Come back to my house, eat. And then he tells him, no, I can't. The Lord told me. And then this prophet, the older prophet, lies. And he says, the Lord told me to come and tell you to come eat with me. So the guy follows him back to his house, goes there, and he sits to eat the meal that this prophet prepared for him. And then, as he's sitting there eating, the prophet who lied to him, the word of the Lord comes to that prophet and says, surely you're going to die because you didn't obey the word of the Lord. And when you leave here, a lion's going to meet you on the way and kill you. And what happened? That guy got up to leave, and when he left, a lion met him in the road and killed him. And then the lion sat there by him, didn't eat him. God was merciful. He didn't let the lion maul him. It just killed him, So, but it's important. But the word of that prophet was fulfilled. And God let that happen as an example for us. I don't think that prophet who disobeyed God's word and got killed by the lion, I don't believe that he went to hell for that. But I do believe that he had to suffer some serious consequences. You know what I mean? I don't know who's going to hell and who's not going to hell. That's not my place, I don't want to be the guy that gets killed by a lion. That's all I know. You know what I mean? I don't want to be the guy that got killed because I disobeyed God's word, So it's important. I feel like the word the Lord is just saying to us right now is fear him. Take his word seriously. Know his word. Know his commandments. Know what he's speaking. Sit down, take the time to figure that out. Don't make your own way. Don't make your own way. It's important. In Isaiah chapter 50, let's go there for a second. Sorry, this is not what I was planning on talking about at all, but it's awesome. Isaiah chapter 50, start in verse 10. It says, Who is among you that fears the Lord, that obeys the voice of his servant, that walks in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of the Lord and rely upon his God. But 11, here's the warning. Behold, all you that kindle a fire, that compass yourselves about with sparks and flames. Go walk in the light of your fire, and in the sparks that you have kindled. This shall you have of my hand. You will lie down in sorrow. And it's important, when we're in the darkness, when the Lord's allowing us to be tested, when he's given us a command and he's saying to wait for it and to wait, and you're in the dark, the temptation is to get out of the darkness. The temptation is to make a way for yourself because it's easier, it's comfortable. But he's saying, don't make your own fire. Don't light your own path. Wait only for the light that comes from the Lord. So remain in the darkness as long as it takes until you know whatever way you're going was the way that the Lord sent you. If you have any doubt in your mind, don't go. Stay and wait for the Lord alone. It's okay to wait. It's okay. But in the meantime, while you're waiting for that, he has shown you what is good. He has shown you what he requires of you. Walk in what you know. Be faithful in what you've already been given. Walk in obedience to what you know, and you'll grow into more. It says the path of a righteous is a shining light that gets brighter and brighter until that glorious day. You're going to keep growing, but you have to be faithful with what you've already been given before you'll be given anything more. It says, whoever's faithful with little shall be faithful with much. Just like John and them with this church. They've been faithful. God's getting ready to do big things with this place. But it's because of his faithfulness to what he had been given. It's because of being faithful and not having to try and go and make these great things for himself, but just waiting for the Lord. That's why it says, whenever you get called to a wedding feast, don't go and put yourself in the seats of honor. Go sit in the back. Wait for the Lord to call you up, because then you'll receive honor. You don't have to make a name for yourself. Let the Lord make his name be known through you, because Jesus is the only name that's going to be remembered. It's not about you. I just want to be known as someone who knows him. I just want people to know that I know Jesus, because that's what's important. That's the only thing that's going to remain. But it starts with knowing his word. I want to end with Psalm 1. I pray this psalm with my son every night. Psalm 1. Everybody needs to memorize this psalm. There's a reason why it's the first psalm. It's important. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he does meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth fruit in his season. His leaf also does not wither. Whatever he does shall prosper. When you're in the Word, when you know the Lord, this is what you'll be like. You'll be like a tree planted by streams of water. You got to let those roots grow down deep. The roots are the most important part of the plant. And they grow in the darkness, right? They don't grow in the light. They grow in those times of confusion, in those times of questioning, in those times where the Lord is testing you and refining you and keeping you from having all the answers and teaching you to trust him. That's where the roots grow. The roots are the most important, but they have to be planted by the stream of water, by this word. Jesus is the word in Christ. But you can't, if you want to know the Lord, know this. He says, you have the law and the prophets, hear them, because they testify of me. If you want to know the Lord, stop looking for the burning bush and start, this is your burning bush right here. You have it. This is the only news that matters. I hope nobody in here is watching CNN or Fox or any of them for that matter, because none of that even matters. All that matters is what this says. Nothing that's going on in this world can change anything that God has determined. All we're doing is waiting for Jesus to come. You know what I mean? Like, we can't get caught up in the rapture and all these things and, when's it going to happen? And they're like, this is the mark of the beast or this is that. Like, look, here's the answer. Be ready. Be ready. You don't know when that's going to be. You don't know. We can see and testify that the times are getting closer, but we don't know how close we are. We don't know how close we are. I promise you that in different times when people were living during World War II or the bubonic plague or some of those other things, they thought it was the time. But it wasn't. Because we can't get caught up with that. We get caught up with being ready and speaking the truth and living as Christians on a daily basis. That's what's important. Be faithful with that. Be faithful with being a Christian, a believer in Jesus, who not just believes and professes faith, but actually shows it by their works. James says, faith without works is dead. James 1:22-25. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own self. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is likened to a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholds himself, and he goes his way, and right away he forgets what manner of man he was. But whoever looks into the perfect law of liberty, this word right here, and continues therein, and not being a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. Like it says in Psalm 1, blessed is the man who doesn't do what the world does, basically, and his delight is in this word. James is reiterating that right here. Delight yourself in this. Delight yourself in the world, in the word. Not in the world at all, in the word. If you delight yourself in this word, the world will have no appeal to you. You know? The world has, because you'll see it as just a temporary thing that's destined for destruction. And you won't want to have anything to do with it. Depart, depart. Go out from there in haste. You know? So let's live like people who believe in Jesus. And not just believe in Him because of what we profess, but believe in Him by the works that we show the world. You know? Not that we're saved by works, but the works are the fruit, you know? Like Jesus says, abide in me. You cannot bear fruit on your own. If you're a branch in the vine, you're going to bear fruit, you know? The only way not to bear fruit is to not be in the vine. But you got to cultivate it, you know? You got to water it. You got to put fertilizer down. You got to obey God's word. You got to do what He says. You got to spend time. That's what it says. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in His law does he meditate day and night. Are you waking up in the morning and doing a devotion? Are you doing a devotion before you go to bed? You know, every morning you need to wake up and get in God's word. And if you don't have time, wake up earlier. For real. Because it's not time to play around no more. You know? It's not time to play around no more. But we got to lay this foundation in all of us of fearing God and being obedient to His word and knowing His word. And then we can talk to each other about His word. Like, oh man, this is what I was reading. That's how we can encourage each other daily. Edifying each other by what God's revealing to us from what we're reading on a daily basis. You know? We need to have that in our personal lives. The beginning of your day and the end of your day are the two times that are the easiest for you to set apart time for God. It's easy to wake up a little bit earlier. I mean, it's hard, but it can be easy if you just ask the Lord to help you. He'll wake you up. It's what you do after He wakes you up. That's you get. He'll wake me up sometimes, and I'll be like, and I'll go back to sleep, and I'll miss that blessing sometimes. But let's continue. Let's continue in His word. Let's continue to let this foundation be laid in Jesus Christ. Let's dig down to the rock, you know, to the thing that's unseen, you know. Your hidden life, your life alone with you and God is the most important. Your life, what you do in secret, what you do with the Lord is the most important. It's not important what you do in front of me or anyone here. What's important is what you do when you're alone with God, because He knows the heart. He knows every thought and intention of the heart. And that's how men are judged and women. So let's be conscious of that. Let's be doers of the word and not hearers only. Lord, let's pray. Lord, we love You. We thank You for all that You've done for us. We thank You for Your grace and Your mercy, Lord, and all the things that You're doing in our lives, that You're drawing us to You and stirring us up and trying to warn us and make us ready for that day that we're going to stand and see You, the most important day of our lives. Help us to remember that. Help us to do everything we do with that day in mind. Help us not to make any excuses for sin. Help us not to make any excuses for the things of this world, Lord. Let this foundation of the Word help us to make our schedules around that. Let's not schedule our Bible time around our schedule. Let's make our schedule around our Bible time. Let us do that, Lord. Please, we just love You. And we just ask you for the grace to do so. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.